So I gotta say, where he is right now, definitely robots.
Okay. How about a dinosaur that's a robot? But that's what I was thinking.
All right, so as we get into the conversation, we want to formally introduce these two illustrious brothers that we have joining us today on this very important topic. So I'm going to start out by introducing Mr. Spry Scott, who's a wellness curator, creative strategist, community builder, and a co-founder of Medicine for Melanin. I love that name. A platform that's designed to connect our communities to holistic care spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally. So please welcome Mr. Spry Scott, and brother, again, we thank you for being on the podcast with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So I am going to introduce our other illustrious guest, and that is Dr. Curtis Jasper, who's a psychologist and human behavior specialist in private practice right here in Atlanta, Georgia. He's a presenter on TED, so he has TED Talk. You need to go check it out. It is a good TED Talk for sure. He's an author, a widely sought after emotional wellness expert, and a recent recipient of a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. So definitely, Dr. Jasper, I want to thank you for being on with us.
Appreciate y'all brothers having me, man. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. So now that we've gotten that, let's switch it up. So we want to allow you guys, before we get into the topic, to just say a little bit about yourselves, whatever you want to say. And Doc, I'll go with you first.
Okay. I am a community servant. I'm originally from Chicago. I've been in Atlanta about 25 years. I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Professionally, I'm a whole health psychologist specifically for Black men, and I'll get into that later. It actually started with my own mental health journey. I'm a former educator, so I left public school education as a principal, and then I jumped into psychology. So a lot of my research started in the schoolhouse, teaching young Black boys.
Nice.
Other than that, man, I'm happy to be here. I'm a father of 4. Grandfather of 1.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, man. So
Keep you on your toes.
Yeah. Should be 10. Should be down here in 2 weeks to stay with Paw. So,
Okay.
She, we'll hang out though. So that's me in a nutshell.
She sounds like she got your wrap around her finger already.
Man, I got 3 daughters. So, I like to say I'm a much better grandfather than I am a father.
And they'll say you just spoiling her, but anyway, that's
Gotta do it. Somebody gotta do it.
That's right.
All right, and Mr. Spry Scott, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you been, where you going, all that good stuff.
First of all, I think I'm gonna add illustrious to my
hey, I give you that
my
one for
bio.
free.
I was like, ooh, illustrious. I'm illustrious. So other than being illustrious, I am, like you said, I am the co-founder of Medicine for Melanin. It is an organization supporting Black and brown people on their healing journeys, and we do that through curating events, workshops, panel discussions, retreats as well. We do focus a lot on Black men and Black youth. I'm a yoga instructor. I'm also a meditation leader or meditation guide. And funny, before this, I have over 20 years of experience working in the fashion and entertainment industry. I was a celebrity fashion stylist for a while, and my job there was to help people look good on the outside. Yeah. And I always felt like when you look good on the outside, you feel good. It helps you start that journey of feeling good on the inside. And now moving into the health and wellness industries, I feel that I just did it in reverse. So now I'm helping you feel good on the inside, finding ways to help us feel our best so that can show up and we can shine when we show up in places.
Yeah. I mean, that's I like the first part about the fashion part, where you having people look good on the outside. You think about our ancestors, right? When we were physically bonded, right, bound and everything. a lot of times the only thing that we had that would help us, I won't say the only thing, but one of the things that helped us to feel better is when we were able to dress up on Sundays,
Yeah.
right? Even though all that other stuff was going on internally,
Right.
but dressing up on the outside helped us to feel better. I mean, that's why you often hear them say, well, they were singing, so they must have been happy. No, not that they were happy about what y'all were doing to them.
Right,
But again, we have that inner happiness anyway that God has given us, and so being dressed up on the outside helps the inside, and now, like you say, coming from the inside out is great, for sure.
Absolutely. I'm curious, brother Spry. So obviously, we know you came from that the space that you were in. It kind of led you to move more towards that inner health. What kind of led you toward that journey?
I think it's just a natural progression
Yeah.
of life. I'm also a father of two. I started late, so I got my kids are the same age as your granddaughter. So, but as a father, I look at it, and the day that my son is the oldest one, the 10-year-old, the day he was born, I didn't have everything.
Right.
You know, I didn't know everything, and if you would have asked me 10 years ago how I would be as a father today, it would be different.
Right.
But over the years, through practice and through just hands-on experience with him, learning from him, more so learning from him than
For
teaching
sure.
him anything.
Yeah, right.
It helped
Yeah.
me to become the father that I am today. And so the same thing with mental health, or just being in the health and wellness industries. I look at my life, and it's always been some sort of practice, you know, whether it's growing up in church or being involved in activities, you know, extracurricular activities growing up. It was just, again, just that natural progression. But it all came together, I would say, around 2020. And with social media, I think most of us were probably way more active on social media during the pandemic when we were all locked in. And I didn't realize how much people were paying attention to me, you know, my friends, my family, and they started reaching out to me and saying, well, what is it that you're doing? You know, how are you staying sane? How are you showing up happy daily? How are you staying healthy? And I started sharing those things, and then it ended up leading to a conversation that we started called How Y'all Healing. And it was Instagram Live, which is now a podcast. And we just talked to health and wellness professionals about who are specifically working with Black and brown communities about their healing journey. And it's asking, like, what's the part of your self-care package? And it's not to point a finger and say, well, this is what you should be doing, but more so, this is what I'm doing. And if it resonates, take it and apply it. And if not, move on from it. And so I think that's what led to this, and then eventually founding the company Medicine for Melanin, and just doing more to support our communities.
Nice. I
That's
love
great.
that.
I love that. All right, that's great. So, Dr. Jasper,
Yes, sir.
you know, your story is, I won't say necessarily unique. There are probably others that have experienced similar to what you experienced. But what I found interesting is that you became a therapist because your therapist that you were going to said you should become a therapist.
Correct.
Do you want to talk about that?
Correct. Yeah. That's my. It's a spin, but it's actually true. I became a therapist in therapy. So the short version is, I went through a really tough period in my life around 2009, and it lasted until about 2014. And so throughout the course of those years, I visited several, mental health practitioners, and so and I had given up on mental health now. But it was the fifth one. A friend of mine, we made a promise that I'd go give it one more chance. So I had to make good on the promise. And so I went to one more mental health professional, and it was in that session after the man hammer, because I knew the routine, right? You come in, you sit down, they ask you what brings you in, they let you roll for about 40-45 minutes. Yeah. and then after that, and I'm like, cool, I made good on my promise, right? So the mental health professional on the other side, he leaned up and he's like, let me ask you a question. And I was like, what's up? He was like, you ever thought about becoming a mental health practitioner? I I said, listen, man, I ain't here for career counseling. I'm not here for career counseling. I'm here for shrink me, dude.
Right. Just do your job and let me go.
I ain't bring my resume.
He said, no, hear me out. He said, no, I've been doing this for 30 years. He was a white guy too. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been working. I haven't been able to reach black men, right? And I don't think the current state of the industry could. He said, but I think you could. And he said, you're not clinically depressed, right? You're grieving, you're pissed, you're upset, you're disappointed, you're sad, but it ain't clinical depression. It's the unique experience of going through some trials and tribulations as a black man in this country at this time.
Emotions.
Yeah. And he says, so I'm not saying give up on therapy. I'm saying become who you're looking for. Because I can tell you on this side, there's a high number of black males who I see, and I can't reach them, right? I don't have the cultural connection, and the current state of the mental health industry is not suited. He said, but I think you can. He said, and allow that to be your healing journey. He's like, how much schooling you got? And I was like, wow. He's like, just go ahead and take, I suspect, like, you can do it, go do it. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, all right, and I walked out of there even pissed, right? I was mad, but I made good on my promise. And I was like, man, I don't know what dude talking about, man. All right, but whatever. You know, and I was at a really tough place in my life, homeless and everything. I just went through a divorce, lost the pain, like the economy crashed at all my efforts in the real estate, and so it was a very tough time. And so I was staying with a buddy of mine, and so 3 days later I started feeling lighter, right? They dude done said something. He done spoke to me, right? And I felt lighter, so I was like, so I jumped back into a doctoral program. I had dropped out of plenty of them, so reapplied, jumped in, and the rest is history, as I say. So he absolutely was sent to me for that very reason. I didn't see him, I didn't hear about him, none of that, but that started the journey, and so I actually, it was the research and the practices that I was studying that I also was doing that actually got me out of the ditch that I found myself in.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah, that's again powerful, both powerful.
Very powerful testimonies for sure. All right, Doc, you want to get into a couple questions here?
Yeah, a couple of them. So I am going to say, let's start with Mr. Scott, and this question is actually for both of you guys. All right. How can leaders, because both of you guys are leaders, right? How can leaders show vulnerability without losing respect?
That's a good question. You want to go ahead? You want to go take that one first?
I would say we have to be confident in who we are first. And I don't want to say first, because a lot of times it means like, all right, well, I need to heal before I get to show up.
Right.
And it's not so much about healing before you show up, but just, I think the most important part is being honest and and giving yourself permission to show up as yourself. And a lot of times, I remember I hosted a radio show a while ago, and I remember there was one time where we had a discussion, and it was probably my most vulnerable moment throughout the years being on the show. And that's probably the most feedback we've ever gotten from people who said that they relate. It started conversations, just everything that happened. And what I realized is that when we are, a lot of times, the part of us that we don't want to share is the part that people need the most. And that's something that I've learned, is that, like, as long as I know, if I'm being honest, even in my moments where I don't really understand it, it's like, you know what, like, this is what I'm going through, but I'm still not sure where I am. People respect that, you know, and I think that's important. It's just being true to yourself, no matter what.
I like that. Yeah, I concur for sure.
Doc?
Yeah, I think what's funny is I don't think you risk losing respect by being vulnerable. I don't think you even gain respect unless you are vulnerable. Right? And so I think oftentimes when we use the word vulnerability in these spaces, it's generalized, but mostly out of context. Because the big underbelly of being vulnerable is to be honest. It ain't to intellectualize your emotions and talk about how you feel. It's to tell the truth about how you feel.
Right.
That's different, right? So it's not, we've intellectualized this whole mental health trending concept, right? And so we could verbalize, all of the buzzwords, right? But what we still have to do is be truthful and honest, which constitutes vulnerability, right? And so that's the truth about where you are, that's provable and measurable, and it's honest about you, how you feel about where you are. Right. And so that part actually promotes connection, which leads into respect.
Absolutely.
And so the very leaders who are avoiding being vulnerable ain't got respect. You can't actually, right? Like, that's the thing. Now, you can use positional power, but that's far from being respected.
There you go. And I want to park here for a second, because I think, there's a very important word, and Dr. Jasper, you just touched on the vulnerability. And when we talk about, we're talking about men's health, with it being Men's Health Month, but again, specifically mental health, I think that vulnerability piece is something that it really resonates in our community. As you mentioned, being vulnerable enough to say, I'm vulnerable right now. Being able to say, I'm not okay, I need help, I need guidance, I need resources. So I'd like both of you gentlemen, and whoever wants to chime in first. So with that said, when we're talking about vulnerability, what are some of the most common mental health issues you see in some of the patients or individuals that you're interacting with in your particular spaces?
So this is and I solely work 99% with Black men, and I always have for the last 13 years. And the number one challenge that men, specifically Black men, are faced with is prolonged grief. Right? Prolonged grief. Now, if you go to a typical mental health practitioner, they're gonna classify it as clinical depression or a whole bunch of other stuff. But grief is unique for Blacks. We all know that, right? There's collective grief, there's enfranchised, there's personal grief. Grief is different for Black folks, right?
Pendulum.
Like we can talk about that all day, right? And so 100% of the men that I see are experiencing some form of grief. And grief is the acute emotions as a result of loss. But we've delineated it to losing a loved one, right? That's an aspect of grief. But grief is loss. When we lose our identity, when we lose contact, lose relationship, lose a number of things, loss, right? And men are, I won't waste time saying how we are culturalized and reared, but what we don't do is talk enough about what it means to lose something, right? All of us have lost more living things than dead. That's a fact. But we don't talk about it, right? The main thing that I experience with working with brothers is that as a result of prolonged or persistent grief that turns into a disorder, the number one challenge is there happens to be an identity disruptor. Right? It disrupts one identity. Y'all know, even in the health, right? Your health go down, you're not the same. Right? Your income go down, your marital status go down, your parenting go down, right? You like, I know people who had children later, they ain't single, they ain't in them single streets. That's grief. Right. They're like, wait a minute.
Wait, hold on.
Get that diaper bag. It may be Louis, right? Get that diaper bag. So grief, so prolonged grief is the underbelly. Trauma, really common, right? And trauma is, when it's shared, it's more bearable, right? I grew up in the hood. I tell people this on the south side of Chicago. When me and my partners, when we all got robbed, we got robbed. We was slipping. It's part of the territory. When I got robbed by myself, I was traumatized because it was just me. But when it was shared, it was like, okay, so next time we gotta keep our heads on the ground. That's right. But when it was me, it was different when it's you and that gun is to your head. right? And your life flashes before you. And so that's how trauma shows up.
That alone, just a gun to the head can be an identity changer.
Correct. Correct.
Because you seeing some of everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Scott.
I would piggyback off of the trauma piece. There's so many different forms of trauma that we experience, whether it is directly or indirectly, especially now, again, with a lot of time that we spend on social media and we take in so much, and or should I say consume? You know, it's a lot about what we consume. And the way I look at it is that when it's kind of like when you're on let's say a health food eating journey, right? And you're very specific about the things that you take in.
Right.
And when you kind of like go off or you have your cheat day, you know that there are times where you got to go back and make that up, right? But when we consume all of this trauma, all of this violence, stuff like that, we don't even something as simple as watching the news, we don't realize that we have to find a way to get rid of that as well, you know. And one of my guests on my show, she said something that kind of stood out for me. And when we talk about trauma, and she said there's a difference between trauma and traumatic experiences, and the difference is how you deal with it. You know, so a traumatic experience can turn into trauma if you don't have the tools to navigate through that trauma. And so that's why with Medicine for Melanin and the programs that we do, it's very important for us to not only talk about it, but we give you tools to help you navigate this thing that we call life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just going back to what you said. We were talking about the news, right? And how the news is so negative, even though they may have some positive stories in there. And when you say that, it resonated with me because my wife and I had this conversation all the time, because she swears all I watch is the news. And I'm like, how can I do that when I'm in the office all day working with people? But when we consume not only news on TV, but even on our phones and all that toxic stuff goes in us. Because again, it's just energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's simply transferred or transformed. And so getting that stuff out of us to help decrease the mental fog, mental deficit, all that is something that we definitely need to focus on doing, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So another question, and this is gonna go for both of you guys, especially since you both say you're both fathers. So, and it doesn't matter whoever wants to take it a stab at it first, that's fine. So as a black man, right, what's your advice to black fathers to raise emotionally healthy children, but especially boys?
You got,
I was
you got the 10-year-old. I got some, but he's 30, right?
I mean, one thing, again, like I said, the father that I thought I would be 10 years ago is totally different from who I am.
Right.
But the biggest thing for me that works is conversation, and it's having conversations with my son. Again, when we talk about vulnerability, being as honest and open as possible, of course, age appropriate. It's different conversations that I've had with him, even last year as a 9-year-old, that I can have with him now as a 10-year-old. But what that does, well, both of them, my daughter is 7, but what it does, it creates a space for them that they feel comfortable in coming and talking to me. And when I say conversation, it's important. It's not that I'm not just talking, but I'm also listening. And a big part of it, again, I mentioned it before, where my children have probably taught me more than I could possibly teach them. Yeah. And one of the things that worked for me is when they were young, or when my son was born, I gave him permission to ask questions. And the reason I did that is because I grew up in a space where children should be seen and not heard, right? You know, so it was things that I looked at but I couldn't say anything about it, right? And so now
Dare not.
I give him permission, but not only do I give him permission or give them permission to ask questions, but then I'm also proactive about answering those questions and finding out. But what I also found in giving them permission to ask questions, I also gave myself permission to start asking questions. So when they started saying, well, why do we do this? And I'm like, dang, I don't know. So I look back to my 10-year-old self and say, well, why is it that we do things the way we do?
For sure.
And so again, when I go back and I talk about my journey, in this health and wellness practice, that's a part of it.
Yeah.
Because I had to start asking myself, well, why do I practice things that I practice? Why am I eating the foods that I'm eating? Something as simple, and I'll just give an example real quick, is with Thanksgiving, because we homeschool. Again, didn't choose it, it chose us. And but we were very intentional about teaching our children the truth.
Yes.
And so when my son was maybe about 6 years old, I think we were talking about Thanksgiving and, you know, the truth around Thanksgiving.
That's right.
And so my son asked, he said, well, if it's so bad, then why do we practice it?
Why do we celebrate? That's right.
And we were like, damn. And we said, and from that day, we stopped celebrating Thanksgiving. And it is a challenge, because then you got your family. Like, y'all, well, who gonna bring the potatoes? But again, like, so going back to the question, it's really about just conversation. It's really about, and I mean, it's so many other things, but really letting them know that it's okay to, whatever it is, to come to us and talk.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because, you know, I come from that same upbringing. You know, children are to be seen and not heard. But also in that, you know, I also, you know, remember, you know, conversations, you know, as a young boy that I had with my dad and my mom, you know, and all those nuggets that they instilled in us at a young age. But, you know, for me, and this is kind of my approach with my two boys, because I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old myself.
Oh, y'all been chilling.
I know.
What the heck y'all been doing?
Well, you know, you had to get all the other stuff out the way first.
Your whole life, y'all whole life.
It's all good until the all-white party.
There you go. So, you know, like I said, for my 5 and my 8-year-old, you know, I see myself in them, in that, you know, for them it's not the what, it's the why. You know, and we want to get to the why of, you know, the meaning of anything. You know, not just, you know, we do this or we do that, or we say this or we say that, but why do we do this, or why do we say that? So I think, you know, and when you talk about that openness to conversation, that's where that conversation comes in. That's how you get to the why. That's why you get that true understanding. So I think that's important. You know, we have to be willing and able to have conversations, dialogue back and forth with our children. Because, you know, it's not just about, as you said so eloquently, it's not just about what we instill in them as parents, but we as, again, and I have that same experience. I learn more from my children than I think sometimes they learn from me. And it's not to say anything about me as a father, you know, or about our abilities as a father of being able to rear children, but it is about the fact that we, you know, having that vulnerability, going back to that vulnerability conversation again, just knowing that, you know, I don't know everything, you know.
If I could jump back in real quick, as far as the emotion part of it, I share emotion with them. Like, I tell them when I am feeling whatever it is I'm feeling. You know, even, when was it? I think, 2 days ago, my daughter, she's an Aries, so she goes from like 0 to 100. Like, nothing is wrong, right?
Right.
But when she is there, is no reasoning or whatever. And then on top of that, my son was going through some things, and I was frustrated, right? But I tell them that, and I'm like, yo, like I understand, like I want to validate your feelings. However, I need y'all to understand that I am just as frustrated too. So this is what I'm gonna go over here and breathe. And I do it, and I show them. Y'all can do what y'all want, but I need a moment. Right. And I think those are things that helps me as well, because now is leading by not just saying this is what you should do, but leading by example. Right. Because if they don't know, like it's easy to look at daddy and be like, oh, daddy always peaceful, he got it going on. But if they know, all right, daddy mad, but he's not showing his anger. Or this is how he's dealing with it. You know, I'd be like, yeah, look, I'm gonna go for a run. And then I come back, now we can talk. But again, like those are things that we show them. These are the tools that we give them to help them navigate.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the way that we operate, I'm gonna go back to the this or that game, right? When I said dinosaur robot. So a lot of the ways that we operate is think is dinosaurish, right? Because people, why do we do that? Because mama did it, grandmama did it, and no thought about it. But the way that we react to it is robotic, because we just doing it because the people before us came, and so that in itself can cause mental anguish and all that, especially when, like you said, I come from the same background where a child is supposed to be seen and not necessarily heard, and so I had questions. And I know how I am now. And I was the one, I still be asking, even though they would say, well, go get a Switch. Okay, I'm gonna go get the Switch. It's gonna be the smallest one. You're gonna be mad, but I know you're gonna get me, but I'm still asking questions. And so we can sometimes be dinosaurish in our thinking and robotic in how we progress.
That's good.
So again, for you, the same question, how can we produce emotionally healthy children, especially boys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pointed out in several variations already, but we can't give what we don't already possess. So it obviously starts with us, right? Being emotionally safe, secure, healthy, and well. These children of all ages now, they are a lot more exposed, which has heightened the awareness. So they don't hear what we say because they hear a lot. They watch what we do. And so as parents, and I work with parents every single day, I find myself giving two prescriptions. One is to lead by demonstration, and the other one is to turn all your statements into questions. Right? So that they'll guide you, right? Instead of saying, you didn't do the dishes, so give me your phone, or you can't play the tablet. Say, did something come up that prevented you from honoring the agreement of doing the dishes before you go to bed? Right. And then take what you get, right? Strong guy, like, all right, now that we got that positive parenting out, give me your tablet and go to bed, right?
That's right.
But be prepared for what comes too, because they'll hit you with some stuff.
For sure.
They'll catch you off guard every time.
But then the next moment, you 2 steps ahead, right? They, like you said, they are the teacher. Let them give you the cheat sheet.
Right. The cheat sheet. That's right.
So I guess in that sense, is again going back, is just as important for us to listen to them as it is for us, or for them to listen to us as it is for us to listen to them.
Right. For sure. Right. Okay, so got another question here, and again, this is for both of you guys, and Doc, I'm gonna let you go first with this one.
Okay.
So, what helps you reset when your mental health feels off?
Wow, that's a good question. So I've been in the space for a while, not just as a healer, but a participant, and so I've built my life around staying set, right? By doing the things that we all know to do, right? I'm active outside, right? I meditate, I journal, I watch what I eat, I minimize consumption, I spend time alone, quiet time, prayer, men's groups. But what I found is when things become overwhelmed, right? When the reset is to do nothing. Yeah. The reset is just to sit and allow myself to finish those feelings and emotions. So I set by getting ahead of it, because we know how life works. We black men, we know how this works. I set by getting in the front of it, but then when, not if, but when I get punched in the side of the face and I didn't see it coming, the first thing is to absorb that blow. And my immediate reaction is to do nothing. Because I found that if I check in with myself, talk with myself, finish those feelings, then I can take inspired action. But I gotta slow it down. So at 54, I find myself sitting around and just chilling and breathing and meditating and taking naps probably than I ever did in my life. So, boys be chilling, right? So stuff get heavy. I ain't gonna answer. And it's not isolation.
Right.
It's the reset.
Yeah.
It's the reset. So I reset by doing nothing. I obviously aware of how emotions work, but there's no immediate action or behavior you can do to sort of offset the emotion in and of itself. It's a temporary fix, right? Which is why we do what we do. But we'd be better off just riding the waves of emotions, and they come. You guys know the nervous system. It comes in 60 and 90-second increments. Now it'll come back, but those are, and so I find myself riding that wave by doing nothing and regaining trust in my body by saying, "You're all right, bro. You're all right. You ain't in danger. Everything's fine. I can call 911. It just don't feel good in this moment."
That's right.
And it's nothing more than that. It just doesn't feel good in this moment.
Right.
So be present in this moment.
That's right. Nice. Got the same question to you. So you've already mentioned to us that you're an avid runner. But what are some of the other things that you do to kind of help reset mentally?
I think same thing. Probably just stop and excuse me, allow myself to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling. But I'm also very proactive in just kind of setting the space, and so that my default setting comes back to self-care. So my podcast is called How Y'all Healing, and How Y'all Healing essentially asks what's in your self-care package. And what you do is you look at what's in your self-care package, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And when you're feeling off, check in with your self-care package. Like, what's different? What are you not doing? How is it showing up? Like, for me, one of the things that shows up, if my room start getting crazy, you know, if it's not clean, then I'm like, all right, something's off. And then I got to look at, well, what am I doing? What's in your self-care package? So going back to 2020, so part of my self-care package is going to the gym. In 2020, when all the gyms shut down, I didn't have that escape. But not only just going to the gym and working out, but getting away from my family. So now, how is it, and not in you know, I got it just in case my kids are listening. Not getting away from you. Not running away from you. But just taking that time for myself. And I think that's important too, is understanding that we need time for ourselves. Like, I'm very specific with my kids. When it's bedtime, go to bed. Like, there is nothing else that you need from me today. This isn't, and they're like, well, why I gotta go to bed? For me. Because I need my time. In the morning, when you wake up, if I'm sitting in my meditation pose, don't touch me, don't ask me for anything unless somebody's bleeding. So I think, but again, so going back, when the gyms closed down, I needed to figure out a way to physically find some kind of active exercise for myself, but then also a time to get away. So going outside and running, you know, I was doing yoga in the house, but again, like, you doing yoga with a 3-year-old, that's like a moving monkey bar, you know? So it's like, nah, I gotta get outside, and that's what it is. So just, again, like, finding what is our default setting and allowing my baseline to be getting back to Spry. Because the best way that I can show up for you is by showing up for myself first.
You trying to strike a pose and that 3-year-old climbing up.
Right.
Yeah.
They mean to be that way.
Right.
Right. I just want to quickly, just before we move on to the next question, as we begin to wrap up here, I want to touch on something that you mentioned, Brother Scott, allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling. And I think that's important. As we're having this conversation again, I mentioned it once again, going back to that vulnerability. I think as black men in particular, we have to not be so quick to want to turn those emotions off.
Right.
When we begin to feel something, or we begin to be in a certain headspace, we need to not just shun it away or compartmentalize it, but allow ourselves to feel that, so that we can process it, and metabolize it and be like, okay, what is this? So we can make some sense of it, so we can kind of channel it and move forward.
I learned that lesson years ago. A friend of mine's dad passed away, and we all gathered at her mom's house the night that he passed away, and we were all trying to support the mom as best as we could. And we were like, well, what is it that you need us to do? We'll stay here. And she said, no, I want everybody to leave. She said, I want everybody to go. And we were like, well, what are you gonna do? She said, I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm gonna go in my room, and I'm gonna cry as much as I could possibly cry. And then tomorrow, I'm gonna get up and do what I need to do. And that's something that sat with me for a while, because a lot of times we think that we are supposed to move in spite of. And it's like, nah, like we gotta take time for ourselves. And then, and the same thing. So, 2 years ago, my mom passed. And when she passed, it was the same thing. I went outside and I laid on my front lawn, and I just laid there. I don't know how long I was there. It felt like 10 minutes to me. I was probably there for 3 days, but I just laid there. And that was me saying, I know what's to come, but so to prepare myself to get ready for all that's gonna come, I gotta start taking care of myself now. And that's something that sometimes we do forget to do. We gotta remind ourselves that we gotta just stop and take care of ourselves.
For sure. So of course I can relate. My mother passed about 2 years ago too, about two and a half years ago. And so, my wife has been by my side even before my mom. But and then this is the vulnerable part. Now we're talking about being vulnerable, right? So about a year ago, my sister, a little over a year ago, she passed unexpectedly. So and I'm the older. It was just the four of us: my father, my mother, my sister, and I. I was the oldest, my sister's youngest, so if you had bet me, I would have betted that my sister would have buried me instead of me burying her. And so, there were a lot of emotions, and Doc can probably speak to this. He's probably seen it too, because one thing that we try to do as men, we try to cover up. Like we know we're feeling on the inside, but we're trying to make good face on the outside and all that. And so, that being in that space, because my wife doesn't like when I say this, but I do say this, but I know it's not totally true, and that is that I'm here by myself. Because again, it was just my father, my mother, my sister, and I. My father passed 30 plus years ago. Then I just told you about my mom and my sister. So I am in that immediate family alone, but not alone, because I have my wife, my mother-in-law. I love her. She's just like another, always have been another mother. My brother-in-law, I don't even call him really brother, he's a brother, and all that. So the mental anguish from things and us trying to hide them, one, and show a good face. So that kind of leads to this next question, and that is, and again, this is for both of you guys. What are the signs loved ones can look for if they suspect a man is mentally struggling silently?
Yeah, there's the obvious ones about, of course, isolation and not taking physically care of oneself. But then there's a disruption of the normal duties and responsibilities. But then there's the invisible ones, right? And men have become expert practitioners and just going through the motions for eons. And so it just takes someone mostly neutral to ask the question, like, not how are you, but share something going really well in your life. And so one of the things that I encourage is to ask specific questions to sort of kind of tap into the heart and the mind so we can get that conversation going for all men, right? Because all men are going through something, right? And instead of saying, you're all right, or it's okay to be okay, like we ran that through COVID. Like, come on, black folks, like, real questions. Like, tell me something, what was your favorite part today?
Right.
What was your best part of listening to the podcast today? Like, let them talk. And so it's during the normal expressions that they'll seep it out. And then you'll hear something like, I was asked about the podcast, and then he leaked it out because it's in it. So we can get brothers to talk about something that feels good because it's in there. They'll leak it. You just got to be on there listening without trying to fix and solve. And then when you hear it, then you turn that into a question. I noticed that you said so and so. What is it that you need, or how can I assist with that?
Brother Spry?
I mean, I think the professional answered it. I don't have anything to add on that. Again, I think that the part about listening, even in other ways though, I do feel that I've seen it with friends and family members where they may say something and we don't realize it, and it's like, whoa, like that was a call for help. And so just really, again, paying attention. So it's like when you're talking to your kids, the thing is listening, right? So pay attention to your friends, and then, like Doc said, just going further than am I, like what does I mean?
So again, I just go back to something that you brought up, Brother Scott, earlier about your health package for yourself, and again the relating to the whole going to the gym. I was a gym rat, all that kind of stuff. That's actually how Doc and I met. We met in the gym. We didn't work out together, but we were always there around the same time.
Early, man.
Early.
So,
we talking like between 5 and 6 in the morning. I always like to say, that early in the morning, there are no pretenders up in there. That early in the morning, everybody's a contender. If you get up that early, you serious about it. And so again, just having that getaway. One of my getaways is also being in the yard. I like to do yard. Now we're so busy now, Doc and I, we've been so blessed to take care of so many people. So I'm going to have to cut back on it. But getting in the yard, that's my me time. One thing I know, my wife, she ain't coming in the yard with me.
That's your space.
Right. That joker still leaving. She moving. She running. But again, that is my time and all that. And so as we get ready to close, what I want both of you guys to do is kind of promote. How can people get in contact with you? Promote something you may have coming up. Brother Scott, I know you got something coming up real soon. And let's start with you, Scott.
So coming up, Medicine for Melanin is presents. This is our first time doing a major event here in Atlanta, or really our own event in Atlanta. But it's called Energy Alchemy for Black Men, and what it is a yoga, beginner-friendly yoga, and a sound bath experience. I have an incredible brother by the name of Reggie Hubbard who comes with his gongs and his sound bowls, and just like a whole masterpiece. And what it does is we're working together between the meditation, between the yoga, and then the sound experience to break up a lot of the stuff that's going on in our heads, and not only in our heads but in our bodies. We are all energy, right? And so being able to use different modalities of healing to break up that energy and start creating the life, or continue to create the life that we want. So it's happening on June 21st. So that's a week. Coming up shortly, and you can just go to medicine4melanin.com to find out more information about that. It's under the events page, or you can follow us at medicine4melanin on Instagram and get the information there.
Okay. Doc?
Yeah, I'm pretty finders friendly. I can be found online at drcurtisdjasper.com, Instagram at I am Dr. Kurt, and Dr. Curtis D. Jasper on the other ones, Facebook, Twitter, and Threads of that nature. In addition to private practice, where I serve 100% men, I do have a few women on my case. I also do group sessions, right, twice a month, and I do an intense, what I call the ICU, an intense program, where I work with highly functioning individuals, black males, and I spend one full day a month with them for 5 months to sort of kind of pick up on the nuance, see how they work, and not only at work, but at home and things of that nature. So that's my newest venture, my ICU. But quite frankly, and I promote, I mention to men that they got to get in and see the professionals. They got to build their squad, right? We got our partners. Make your primary, your chiropractor, man, get you some new partners, right? They professionals, right? And yeah, you do. So that's a form of taking great care of yourself. So when you lean, they can just help you. We're trying to prevent picking brothers up when they fall. Right. We just kind of want to, when they lean, we want them to bump up against all of us as guardrails. And so I often tell brothers to go see a chiropractor. It's the emotions and the trauma that's stored in the body.
That's right.
Right. All it takes is you think you need to talk to me, you need an adjustment.
Right.
Then you need to come back and talk to me so that we can have a different conversation. So I often, and I do it, right? And so one of the things I'm very proud of is I lead by example, which is why I live out loud, so that black men could choose me if I'm their person. But not because I got credentials and I talk halfway decent, but that I'm their person, right? He walks the talk. And if nothing else, and for those brothers who cannot reach me, I still want to have access to them by giving demonstrations, sitting on platforms like this, just letting brothers know that we got things in place for y'all, and if it's not today, we're gonna be here when y'all ready.
Right, absolutely. I love the old lean thing. One thing, this phrase I'm about to say, Doc can relate to it real good, and that is, he ain't heavy. He's my brother.
Right.
And so we want to thank both of you guys for coming in and everything.
Love it.
Look, we got to do this again.
Yes, let's do it. Part 2. Let's run it.
One thing about the mental, it runs the gamut.
And as much as we're saying that June is Men's Health Month, we're speaking specifically about mental health. It's not just June. It's every month, every day, 365. It's something that we have to continue to promote in the community to our brothers, and continue to uplift because it is a vital part. Going back to chiropractic real quick, it's not just about the physical component of the adjustment and the benefits of what we do, but many don't realize there is a mental component to what we do from a chiropractic perspective. So when we adjust, there's scientific evidence that we are releasing endorphins and norepinephrine into the body, so it's having a hormonal effect as well too that speaks to getting toward that mental balance. So definitely we appreciate this conversation. It's a much needed conversation in our community, and we definitely have to continue the dialogue for sure.
Appreciate y'all, brothers. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So one final word we just want to say, men, your mental health matters. Let me just say it again. Men, your mental health matters. It's okay to feel, and it's more than okay to ask for help. Let me say that last part. It's more than okay to ask for help. And so asking for help is not weakness, it is the beginning of healing.
Absolutely. So hopefully this episode has resonated with a lot of brothers out there and sisters as well too.
Yeah.
But if it has, or if you think it can help someone that you know, please share this episode, share the resources, reach out to these two knowledgeable and wonderful brothers and get the help that's much needed.
Appreciate y'all, man. Thanks so much.
And so last thing we'll say, we can be reached at Your Fine Spine, that's YOURFINESPINE.com, yourfinespine.com. We are Aligned for Life. I am Dr. Joseph Fowler Jr.
I am Dr. Brandon K. Williams.
Auto accident, wellness care, slip and fall. We take care of it all.
Let's do it. Love that, man.
All right, so before we sign off, are there any
questions?
Mr. Moderator, did you see any questions on the platform? Let's
have any,
Yeah, so we're good. So, all right, so thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode.
next episode, every Wednesday, 1:30 to 2:30, we'll be here.
Y'all do it every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Well done, gentlemen.
Thank y'all for sure.